Chapter 24. St. Nick was saying, the issue before this court is a temporary placement of April Fenimore, not legal custody, but placement. I have a preliminary report from social services that recommends that April be placed in foster care until other matters can be resolved. Those other matters might, and I repeat the word might, include divorce proceedings, criminal charges against the father, psychiatric evaluation of both parents, and so on. We cannot anticipate all of the legal battles that lie ahead. My job today is to decide where to place April while her parents attempt to bring some order into their lives. This preliminary report concludes with the belief that she is not safe at home. Miss Boone, have you had some time to read the report? Yes, Your Honor. Do you agree with it? Yes and no, Your Honor. Last night, April was at home with both parents in the house, and she felt safe. The night before, she was at home with her mother, and she felt safe. But last week, on Monday night and Tuesday night, she was at home alone and had no idea where either parent was. Around midnight Tuesday, her father showed up, and because she was terrified, she left with him. Now we all know the rest of the story. April wants to be at home with her parents, but I'm not sure her parents want to be home with her. Perhaps, Your Honor, we should hear from her parents. Precisely, Mr. Fenimore. What are your plans for the near future? Do you plan to stay at home or leave? Tour again with your rock band or finally give it up? Get a job or continue to drift here and there? File for divorce or get some professional help? A clue here, Mr. Fenimore. Give us some idea of what we can expect from you. Tom Fenimore hunkered down under a barrage of loaded questions suddenly aimed at him. For a long time he said nothing. Everyone waited, and after a while it appeared as though he had no response. But when he spoke, his voice was scratchy, almost cracking. I don't know, Judge. I just don't know. I took April last week because she was scared to death, and we had no idea where May was. After we left, I called several times, never got an answer, and as time passed, I guess I quit calling. It never occurred to me that the whole town would think she had been kidnapped and murdered. It was a big mistake on my part. I'm really sorry. He wiped his eyes, cleared his throat, and continued, I think the rock tours are over. Kind of a dead-end road, you know. To answer your question, Judge, I plan to be at home a lot more. I'd like to spend more time with April, but I'm not sure about spending time with her mother. Have the two of you discussed the divorce? Judge, we've been married for 24 years, and we separated the first time after 2 months of marriage. Divorce has always been a hot topic. What's your response to the report's conclusion that April to be removed from your home and placed somewhere else, somewhere safe? Please don't do that, sir. I'll stay home, I promise. I'm not sure what May will do, but I can promise this court that one of us will be at home for April. That sounds good, Mr. Fenimore, but, frankly, you don't have a lot of credibility with me right now. I know, Judge, and I understand, but please don't take her away. He wiped his eyes again and went silent. St. Nick waited and turned to the other side of the room and said, And you? May Fenimore had a tissue in both hands and looked as though she had been crying for days. She mumbled and stammered before her finding her voice. It's not a great home, Judge. I guess that much is obvious, but it's our home. It's April's home. Her home is there, her clothes and books and things. Maybe her parents are not always there, but we'll do better. You can't take April out of her home and put her with strangers. Please don't do that. And your plans, Miss Fenimore, more of the same, or are you willing to change your ways? May Fenimore pulled papers out of a file and gave them to the bailiff, who in turn handed each one to the judge. Mr. Fenimore and Miss Boone. This is a letter from my therapist. He explains that I'm under his care now and is optimistic about my improvement. Everyone read the letter. Though couched in medical terms, the bottom line was that May had emotional problems and had to deal with them. She had gotten herself mixed up with various and unnamed prescription drugs. She continued, He has enrolled me in a rehab program as an outpatient. I'm tested every morning at 8 a.m. When did you start this program? St. Nick asked. Last week. I went to see a therapist after April disappeared. I'm much better already, I promise, Your Honor. St. Nick put the letter down and looked at April. I'd like to hear from you, he said with a warm smile. What are your thoughts, April? What do you want? In a voice much stronger than either parent, April began, Well, Judge, what I want is something that's impossible. I want what every kid wants, a normal home and a normal family. But that's not what I have. We don't do normal, and I've learned to live with that. My brother and sister learned to live with it. They left home as soon as possible, and they're doing okay out in the world. They survived, and I'll survive too. But if I can get a little help. I want a father who doesn't leave for a month without saying goodbye and without calling home. I want a mother who will protect me. I can deal with a lot of crazy stuff, as long as they don't run away. Her voice began to break, but she was determined to finish. I'm leaving too, as soon as I can. Until then, though, please don't abandon me. She looked at her father and saw nothing but tears. She looked at her mother and saw the same. St. Nick looked at the lawyer and said, As April's guardian, Miss Boone, do you have a recommendation? I have a recommendation, Your Honor, and I have a plan, Miss Marcella Boone said. I'm not surprised. Continue. My recommendation is that April will remain at home tonight and tomorrow night, and then on a nightly basis, if either parent plans to be away from home during the night, that parent must notify me in advance, and I'll notify the court. Further, I recommend the parents begin marriage counseling immediately. I suggest Dr. Francine Street, who's, in my opinion, the best in town. I've taken the liberty of setting up an appointment this afternoon at 5 p.m. Dr. Street will keep me posted on the progress. If either parent fails to show up for counseling, then I will be notified immediately. I will contact Miss Finnemore's new therapist and ask to be updated on her progress in rehab. St. Nick stroked his beard and nodded at Miss Boone. I like it, he said. What about you, Mr. Finnemore? Sounds reasonable, Your Honor. And you, Miss Finnemore? I'll agree to anything, Judge. Just please don't take her away. Then it is so ordered. Anything else, Miss Boone? Yes, Your Honor. I arranged for April to have a cell phone. If something happens, if she feels threatened or in danger or whatever, she can call me immediately. If for some reason I'm not available, she can call my paralegal or perhaps someone with the court. Plus, I'm sure she can always find Theo. St. Nick thought for a second and smiled and said, And I'm sure Theo can always find her. 15 feet above the dark contestants of the Stratton County Courthouse, Theodore Boone smiled to himself. The hearing was over. Speedy was back, shuffling through his cramped room below, mumbling to himself as he put his mop away and accidentally kicked his bucket. Theo was trapped and he really wanted to get out of the building and go to school. He waited. Minutes passed. Then he heard the familiar sound of Speedy snoring, fast asleep as usual. Silently, Theo climbed down the shelves and landed on the floor. Speedy was kicked back in his favorite chair, cap pulled down over his eyes, mouth open, dead to the world. Theo eased by and made his escape. He was hustling down the wide hallway, almost into a sweeping staircase, when he heard someone call his name. It was Judge Henry Gantry, Theo's favorite judge in the entire courthouse. Theo, he called loudly. Theo stopped, turned, and began walking to the judge. Henry Gantry was not smiling, though he seldom did. He was carrying a thick pile of some sort, and he was not wearing his black robe. Why aren't you in school? He demanded. More than once, Theo played hooky or skipped school to watch a trial, and on at least 2 occasions he had been caught red-handed in the courtroom. I was in court with my mother, he said, somewhat truthfully. He was looking up. Judge Gantry was looking down. Would this have anything to do with the April Finnemore case? He asked. Strattonburg was not a large city, and there were few secrets, especially among the lawyers, judges, and police. Yes, sir. I hear you found a girl and brought her home, Judge Gantry said with the first hint of a smile. Something like that, Theo said modestly. Nice work, Theo. Thanks. Just so you'll know, I've rescheduled the Duffy trial to begin in 6 weeks. I'm sure you'll want to front row seats. Theo could think of nothing to say. The first murder trial of Pete Duffy had been the biggest in the town's history, and thanks to Theo, it had ended in a mistrial. The second promised to be even more suspenseful. Theo finally said, "Sure, Judge. We'll talk about it later. Get to school." "Sure thing." Theo bounded down the stairs, jumped on his bike, and raced away from the courthouse. He had a lunch date with April. They planned to meet outside the school cafeteria at noon and steal away to the old gym where no one could find them. Miss Boone had packed veggie sandwiches, April's favorite and Theo's least favorite, and peanut butter cookies. Theo wanted to hear every last detail of the abduction. And that's the end of Theodore Boone, The Abduction. Thanks for listening. And I'll read the next book next time. All right. See you later.